Good evening to those in the house. Good evening to those of you watching us on Facebook. Welcome again to Keeping It Real, Relevant, and Raw. I'm your host, Pastor Adriel Saville Morgan. We are here at the Quake Community Church, 600 Lafayette Avenue Northeast here in Grand Rapids. And we are going to dive into a oft read, oft used, and oft misused text today. For our study for this next hour. And we invite those of you on Facebook to please leave your comments in the comments section, and we'll be glad to get back with you about that. Join me now for this prayer of understanding as we dive into the word. Yahweh God, blessed are you, the creator and giver of the instruction, and blessed is your instruction. For without it, we can do nothing. And we thank you for this opportunity to know it a little bit deeper, that we may come to know you in a real, relevant, and raw way. Let the words of my mouth and meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. Yahweh, my strength and our Redeemer. Amen. And so, good evening. As I said, it's not a foreign text to anybody here or anybody out there. And this is the way it's generally used. You do something, you do something that's a little out of character, and you got someone that calls you out on it. And your response is, hey, judge not, lest you be not judged. The question becomes, is that the proper usage of that text? Is that text meant for me to have a retort when someone holds me accountable for my actions? I'm gonna let y'all think about that out in Facebook land, and those of us here in the house, let's talk about this. Is that, hey, don't judge me? And it's usually followed by this also. It's also followed by, the use of Romans as well. Hey, all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the question becomes, should I use Matthew 7:1 as a way to dismiss someone who's trying to hold me accountable?
No, I believe that both that we're called to make considerations, if you want to call them judgments, about other people, just so we can become clear on our relationship with them. It's a matter of perhaps how do we act on that, but I don't think it's wrong to look at someone and be able to say to yourself, that's wrong. And then make a decision, should I confront them about it being wrong? And with God being in it, I think God also does judge our behavior, but I do believe he does it with a loving hand, a correcting hand, a hand that wants us to move in the right direction and not necessarily with a heavy fist.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments in the house? Concerning? Yes, ma'am.
This is not fully thought out, but I'm wondering if it'll go to, judging who, that keeping accountable believers is different than keeping accountable people who don't believe the Bible, don't believe in. So I don't know if there's a connection there or not, but that's when I think of the, do not judge, or you too will be judged, that we keep other Christians accountable in ways that we may not keep others accountable.
Thank you. Okay. Well, here's the deal. What it boils down to, we're all saying the right things. And once again, it boils down to original language. Because the word judge, the way that we use it in English, is not a good translation of the Greek word krino, which is used in the original manuscript. And which, of course, is translated from the Aramaic that Jesus spoke. Let's look at real quick Matthew 7, so we know where we are. This is Bible study, so we ought to do some reading of the Bible, right? So it's Matthew, the 7th chapter is where we're coming from. We'll also jump to Luke, who comments on this as well. In Matthew, the 7th chapter, it says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." And so we see what we have there in all of that context. The word judge is not, I think, what we would use as discernment, right? Generally, when we talk about judging folks, and even the way that you used it, to see how, how are they really, so it can change, or it can affect our relationship based on how I see someone. That's discernment. That's not krino, the way that it's spoken here. You know what krino is in Greek? It's the same word that John said when he said that Yahweh didn't send his son to condemn the world. The word condemn is the word krino. So what we really see is do not condemn, or you too will be condemned. Do not, a good way to put this is, because we look at that and we say, all right, well, Grant, I'm not condemning anyone. I'm not somebody to hell, although there are some people who do that. But let me tell you how this also applies. This also applies simply this way. This is a word that comes from the marketplace. Matter of fact, this entire thing, there's a lot of language in here that comes from the marketplace, because Jesus uses everyday objects and everyday situations in order to teach us. And in the marketplace, and we know this, that we would go there. Let's say when you're going to buy fruit and vegetables, we inspect our fruit and vegetables. We discern our fruit and vegetables. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. Condemn is this. If I go to Myers at Knapp Corner and I inspect the fruit and the vegetables, okay, but if I go to, let's say, I don't even know the name of the store, but it's on Hall and Madison. All right. And if I go there and I not inspect, but expect the fruit to be rotten, you know, just because where it's located, just because I have this view that folk that live in that neighborhood don't take care of stuff. That's crino. I don't have to say you're going to hell to judge you. I just have to not give you the benefit of the doubt. I just have to not believe that you have my best interest in mind. So without going to that example, we'll take this example. On my way here, actually, getting off the college exit off of 196. I'm going to get into the left turn lanes. I can turn left. There's someone who is in the lane next to me, which is supposed to turn right, does not have their signal on, butts in front of me, makes me slam my brakes. Now, I have two options at that point. I can slam on that horn. I can throw up a finger. I can yell some things. But I mean, so after I slammed on the brakes and caught wind of what I was doing, really, I didn't hit the car, didn't hit the minivan in front of me. And I paused and I thought for a second. And so I let it go. Because I don't know what the situation is. But instead of saying you wanted to cut me off, you just tried to get me to run into you so that you could take my insurance money. I said, you know what? You didn't intend to almost cause this collision. So I'm going to let this go. That's the antithesis, the opposite of krino, if you will. So, of course, when Jesus speaks, whenever he gives us a negative, he wants us to think in the positive. And so he wants us to think, instead of ascribing negative motive to someone, give them the benefit of the doubt. Believe that they have good intentions towards you. Because if you believe they have good intentions towards you, you're going to treat them a little bit differently. All right? When I go into that store and I believe that that store wants to not just make money, but wants to provide their customers with a quality product. One, to keep them healthy, because if you're healthy, a couple things going to happen. One, you can come back and spend more money. But also just because I just want people to be healthy. And I believe that about the storekeeper, wherever they happen to be. Am I always going to be right? No, there are some shady people. But it's my job to have the mindset that no, this is not that they're not thinking that way. I got another one for you. We see this all the time in Grand Rapids and in other places. It's becoming more and more common. Brother, sister standing out on the corner with the sign. And I was talking to one of my athletes Monday, and he was telling me about a time that he saw this woman standing on the corner with her sign. And I think the sign said anything helps. And he had just bought some granola bars. You know, he's an athlete. We carry around granola bars. He had just bought that box of granola bars, and he handed it to her, even though he had bought it for himself. And he said, Coach, I just got so upset because I drove by that spot a little bit later, and I drove by that spot for like 2 weeks, and that box was there, unopened. It hadn't been touched. And a couple of times she was still there. And there were times that she wasn't, but every time I drove by, that box was untouched. And it wasn't just the box that I left her. Other people had left her food, and it was untouched. So this becomes a thing, because I've been there. I think we've all been there. Oh, you gonna do something else with this money. You're not going to get food with this money. You're not going to try to, pay for a hotel room to keep your children, keep a roof over your children's head with this money. You're gonna do something else with this money. But that's kreno. It is. And it's, so you see how easy it is for us to slip into this? That it's not as simple as, I'm just not going to tell somebody to go to hell. Because, and I keep coming back to this, why is this such a problem? Why does he say this to us? Because he reminds us that we are made in the image of Yahweh, who it is said is no respecter of persons, and who is also said assumes the best of us, even though every inclination of man is evil. Said that in Genesis 6. But he still sees the best in us. That somebody ought to get happy about that. Because that's the whole thing that we have going on here in what he is saying. When you judge, when you condemn, that same thing is going to happen to you. Why? Because you think this is the real reason why. It's because at that point you make yourself Yahweh. When you have the ability to degrade someone and to make a comment on their character, you have made yourself Yahweh, because Yahweh is the one who creates. Yahweh is the one who gives people character. So what's going to happen, because now where are we? You already know. So why is that a problem? If I make myself Yahweh, what am I now violating? Which of the commandments I'm violating? Don't make any other false gods. I am jealous to defend my name. Yeah, that's where we have the issue. So I want you to think, as we look at several of the narratives, look at a lot of the biblical texts, and see what's going on, and notice how this plays into that, and why Yahweh gets upset so much. Why does he get upset at the way that Pharaoh treats the Israelites? Does Pharaoh kreno the Israelites? I would say he does. He downgrades them from being in the image of Yahweh God to being like animals. And he makes them do the work of animals. Yahweh gets upset because Pharaoh has tried to put himself on the same level as Yahweh. We could go throughout the annals of history, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament, and then we can come into the recent and see where this is happening. And as I've pointed out with several examples that I think we've all kind of have that. It's because it's as simple. Once again, it's as easy to mess that up as someone coming to talk to you and you don't know where they're coming from. So you think negatively about that individual, that they're out to get you, that they have a situation. You know, you walk in here, somebody doesn't smile at you. We talked about this in the Church Matters sermon. Some days I don't like myself. I can't smile at myself, let alone you. That's just how it is. But you don't know what I went through before I got here. So instead of crinoing me and saying, oh, he doesn't like me, he's stuck up, you give me the benefit of the doubt and endeavor to find out how I'm doing. Give me a chance to explain what's going on in my life, that might change how you see how I didn't greet you. That it might be, you never know, that you coming to talk to me might be just what I needed. Might be just what it took to put that smile on my face. Might be just what I need to forget about what was going on before I left the house in order to get here. This is one of we do the sharing of the peace. And that I encouraged y'all on Sunday to make each other smile. That wasn't just trite. It was a serious thing because we have a habit, I feel. And for whatever the reason of coming into church so stone-faced. And then have the audacity to throw about words like joy. How? I don't see that. I don't see joy when we're not smiling. I see funeral when we're not smiling. I see upset when we're not smiling. It's something that simple that we just have to remind each other to do. Yes, sir.
This is interesting, and I think I answered it with what was on before I left here, and I mentioned to William about this. And my wife had gone through our bills and made, more or less, I'm thinking I got heavy things on my mind. And she was more or less saying, we're on a fixed income, now we got all this medication we got to pay for you. And now you got this car and we got to pay for that. And I'm not going to get to go do this, that, and the other thing. And of course, my thought was, and I didn't say it, but boy, there are times when I have, which is why you're really selfish. And no wonder our daughters have hard times with you and that sort of stuff. But as you're talking, I'm thinking, and that's hard to do, particularly, I think, in a closer, is to not only not react, but to step back and say, those are real concerns. And those are real concerns. And kind of leave it at that a bit, But I can see how, at least in my life, that has turned into big old argument. I say this, and she says that, and then the next thing you know, you're shouting at each other. And it's a bit of, like you said, in that moment when that car was there. But I guess over time, maybe there's an element of we are able to, I don't know that I can do that well, switch a little bit from wanting to confront, fight, argue, and instead, not only, that's what I'm thinking about now as you're talking, pause, but move it a little bit away from, well, you're so wrong and I'm just being nice by not fighting with you, you know, to go to the place I think you're talking a bit about to, I wonder what's going on beyond that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a very good statement. We have anything else before I move forward? Because that makes a lot of sense. And that brings up, when you talk about getting to the heart of the matter, would lead us to, while we're long down in there at Matthew 7, head back real quick to Matthew 5. Donde quiero que empecemos. All right. Head to Matthew 5 and 40. Matthew 5 and 40. So we know that this is in here with the codes. This is in the same place where you have eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, and you get slapped, turn the other cheek. This is interesting. We're just going to look at 40 real quick. And if anyone wants to sue you, I'll give you one guess as to what the Greek word that's translated as sue is. Krino. Krino. Yeah. And pause real quick and think about that. When you take somebody to court, I'm not trying to leave there without some justice being done. So when I take somebody to court, it's because I myself cannot get what I'm looking for. I need the help of the law to condemn, to judge this person in order to get my property, get my money, get my whatever. So yes, the word sue there is the word krino. But so if he wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. Now, this is so that I kind of like the way the NIV does this, because it helps us to understand exactly what's going on. And, you got King Jimmy talking about tunics and cloaks, and nobody wear tunics and cloaks no more. But this makes sense because you can see that he wants your shirt. Think about that. You want my shirt. Here's my coat as well. What's he getting at? Do you see it? If you need my shirt that badly, that must mean that you're in need. That must mean that you're cold. That must mean that you can't just survive if I only give you my shirt. You must need my coat also. And getting to the heart of the matter would let me to see that, so that I would make the right decision. And I would say that this is something that we look at when you got, when you got some shoplifting going on. Not always, and we know that, and we're not going to be naive and think that everybody is taking care of their family. But there are indeed some folk that shoplift to take care of their family. And put yourself in the shopkeeper's shoes. Do I take them to court because they shoplifted? Or do I find out, and first of all, not even find out, believe, assume, give the benefit of the doubt that you must really need that? So you know what? Those diapers that you shoplifted, clearly you have a baby, or somebody's got a baby in your household that needs to be taken care of. Here's a formula too. The Christian shopkeeper does what I just said. The worldly shopkeeper says, I don't care. You taking money out of my pocket. You're messing with my bottom line. Who cares about you and your situation? without stopping to take the time to consider why did that happen. When we take the time to stop and consider why something happens and give people the benefit of the doubt, we are acting more like Christ. I challenge you to read through red letters and read through when Jesus is speaking and interacting with people and find when he doesn't try to hear their story. I challenge you, take the time to do that. Go through the Gospels as he interacts with these people. And you know, he cuts a lot of them deep. You know, let's not get it twisted. He could be sarcastic. It was very funny to me in many ways. It could be very direct. But I claim to you that every single time I can quote examples, woman at the well, he gets to the bottom of why she's doing what she's doing. I know why you came here. I know what you need. Woman brought in the very act of adultery. I know why you came here. I know what you need. The Syrophoenician woman with the sick daughter that he calls a dog, which is a little bit less offensive when you consider that he actually used the word for puppy, so it's a little cute. But she has a need, and he gives her a chance to explain herself. This is where this goes with us. I do not believe in excommunicating personally. I don't think that that's our job. I don't think that that's our place. I've seen too many people that have changed. And I'm not going to put Yahweh in a box that he can't change. And bad things can happen. I understand that. I get that. People can do bad things. But what I see here is that it's not my place to excommunicate anybody. It's not my place to put anybody out. It's my place to hold people accountable. It's my place to find out why they did what they did. It's my place to have conversations and to give folk an opportunity to speak. So I can, one, is there some misinterpretation, some misunderstanding somewhere? Did you need a little more instruction? Did you need a little bit more relationship? But I don't know that if my first thought is, oh, you're pregnant and you're not married, you are not a member of this church. Just an example. But it happens. We know it. We know it happens. You're a man and you like men, get out of this church. You're a woman and we could go over all kinds of examples. You had an abortion, get out of this church. And in my mind, based on what I'm reading, I'm saying, how dare you? How dare we? How dare we put ourselves on that level, make ourselves Yahweh, and create a heaven and a hell to put folk in? That's not our jurisdiction. That's not our bailiwick. While we are here, we are the hands of mercy. We are the thoughts and the words of mercy and covenant loyalty, because at the end of the day, that's the other thing that he's saying. How you gonna condemn somebody when truly, if Yahweh really did what he was supposed to do according to what we've done? Go to Luke real quick. And I want to go here because Luke 6, I'm gonna go here because this is a twofer. You never hear this. Luke 6:37, Luke 38. When Luke 6:38 is used, it's usually talking about what? In the church. Come on now. Y'all been in church long enough. When Luke 6:38 is used, what's generally happening? What part of service are we usually in? Not we here. We know better. But in other churches, you see it. Give and it shall be given back to you. Good measure. What's usually happening? Offering. Look at me carefully, Facebook. That verse has nothing to do with offering. There is no biblical guarantee that when I give offering, that it will come back to me, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. Get that prosperity theology, that misreading of the Bible out of your system, please. We need to stop that. So this is what it really is. I mean, it's even in a paragraph. You can't separate this when it's in a paragraph. Do not judge and you will not be judged. That's 37. Do not condemn, you will not be condemned. Forgive and you will be forgiven. So he goes even further here and says, forgive and you'll be forgiven. Yes, sir.
Tell your athlete when after that period of time, he's thinking, hey, I gave my granola bars and they're still sitting there 3 weeks later.
So I had the conversation with him that I'm having with you. That I basically told him, I said, don't stop reaching out to people. If you feel you're wrong by her, move on. But there are other people on corners who legitimately do need something. And when you legitimately give them that box, you will find it empty. And it's a law of averages thing. And I did tell him, I said, Carter, that's his name. I said, it's our job to believe the best of people, to believe that folk are not just trying to fleece us, to believe that folk don't just want to waste our time. It's our job to give them the benefit of the doubt, which is kind of what led me to this lesson, actually, that conversation with him. And it's tough to do. It's tough to do. But like I said, I think, President W said it. He said, fool me once, shame on you. When you fooled, you can't be fooled again, he said. He was trying to say, you fooled me twice, shame on you, of course. Shame on me. And I think that that's where we are. We know, again, we do have discernment and we do have the right and the biblical mandate to discern. That if we are being taken and we can clearly see the mindset of someone who is, yes, taking advantage of us. This is not something that I'm assuming. This is not something that I'm saying that that's their character. They've proven their character. And at that point, I have every right not to engage that person. And Jesus has said that many times, even when he talked about the being slapped and turning the other cheek. Remember that slap has to happen. If it's going to be on this one, it has to be backhanded, which means it has to be an insult. And that if that he used is a type of conditional in Greek that says I forget which class it is, and you wouldn't care about classes. The bottom line is it's a big if. It's an if that implies that it does not at all have to happen. So it's not a when. Some people say that when you get slapped. No. It's an if, meaning that I am within my God-given right to dodge someone who wants to insult me.